This is CBC Vancouver News.
I think the family is cautiously optimistic. You know, there is a court date. This still has to be proven in court.
More than 5 years after an Indigenous man died in police custody, 5 Mounties in Prince George have been charged, some with manslaughter.
All of us can relate to what a devastating thing it would be.
At least 3 BC homes have been listed for sale without the owner's knowledge. The crime is rare, but the warnings are strong.
I don't think I'm going.
And why so much more? Ticketmaster faces more blowback from BC concertgoers over a major price difference between shows. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. 5 RCMP officers have now been charged in connection with the death of an Indigenous man in Prince George. As the CBC's Renee Filipponi explains, the man died in custody more than 5 years ago.
Well, Dale Culver died back in the summer of 2017. That's more than 5 years ago. An investigation by the police watchdog said the RCMP received a call about a man casing vehicles. Now, when they approached Culver, he tried to flee on a bicycle, but there was a struggle. Pepper spray was used, and Culver was placed in the back of the police car. Soon after, he had trouble breathing. Paramedics were called, and he was taken to hospital, but died that night. There are also some reports of the officers there. They were telling witnesses to delete footage taken of the arrest. Now, that watchdog report, released in 2020, recommended then that Crown look at laying charges against the 5 officers. Now, the 35-year-old father of 3 was a member of the Wet'suwet'en and Gitxsan First Nations. His family are welcoming the charges, and advocates are calling it vindication.
There are many cases out there in Canada where there has been a death in custody of an Indigenous person. So, you know, it takes quite a while, the process, in terms of seeing some sort of justice or some sort of movement in these types of cases. And certainly that's one of the things that needs to be addressed.
Also devastating because it validates that Dale Culver should still be alive with his family and his friends and with us. And nobody should have to miss him today.
The 2 officers charged with manslaughter are Constable Paul Saint-Marie and Constable Jean-Francois Monet. 3 others have been charged with obstruction of justice. Now, RCMP say all but 1 are, quote, remain operational. The officer, that one, is on administrative leave for unrelated reasons. His death led to allegations about anti-Indigenous racism within police and really became a focal point during the 2020 George Floyd riots. Now, the first court appearance for these officers is March 14th.
Filipponi reporting. The jury in the coroner's inquest into the suicide of Vancouver Police Constable Nicole Chan is making a dozen recommendations on how to prevent similar deaths in the future. The inquest heard about Chan's history of mental health struggles and that she had been intimately involved with 2 superior officers. Karen Larson has more on the reflections of the jury.
The jury came back with 12 recommendations, including that there should be better communication between physicians in the community that attend to a patient like Chan, also the police officers that brought her to hospital and the paramedics, and the attending psychiatrist at hospitals where patients taken in under the Mental Health Act are brought to. Some of the other recommendations include a better respect in the workplace training within the VPD and training specific to human resources duties for officers who are moved into the VPD Human Resources section. This is important because we heard during the coroner's inquest that Chan was in a relationship with a superior, Sergeant David Van Patten, who was in the Human Resources section. She claimed that he had sexually assaulted and extorted her, and she made a complaint within the force. This was part of the frustration that she had professed in the weeks leading up to her suicide, that she thought that, you know, men that she had been involved within this VPD, and her complaints against this one in particular were taking so long to solve, and she had lost her career. She was off work at that point, and these people continued to work. So we heard after the coroner's jury brought back their recommendations from Nicole Chan's sister, Jen Chan. Here's what she had to say.
She would be very happy that she's finally listened to. and that everyone else has listened and also feel the same way in respect to the fact that things did need to be changed, and we're very satisfied in the fact that, you know, other people also think so.
We heard that in her last moments at the hospital that she really just felt like nobody was listening to her. And I think that collectively we as a community have all listened to Nicole. We've heard her voice, and I think she's got to be satisfied with that.
We'll see if these recommendations are taken up by the various authorities that they were made to. And also the family has filed a civil suit naming the Vancouver Police Department, the Vancouver Police Board, the Vancouver Police Union, Van Patten, amongst others, as defendants. So we'll have to see where that goes as well.
Thank you, Karen. A new CBC investigation has revealed a slew of house title fraud cases here in BC. It comes after we found a surge in Ontario. It's basically homes listed and sold by fraudsters posing as the owners. As Michelle Gassoub reports, this type of fraud may be on the rise as fake IDs become more sophisticated.
It's every homeowner's worst nightmare, finding out your home has been listed and sold without your knowledge. Court documents reveal it's happened at least twice in BC since 2019. 2 homes in Richmond allegedly sold while the true owners were abroad, and a third attempt thwarted before the transaction could go through. The fraud centers around fake IDs. Fraudsters obtain ID with the true owner's name, which they use to impersonate the home owners. They then list the home for sale or use it to take out a mortgage, then take off with the cash. This kind of fraud, while alarming, isn't new.
The person was saying, "I'm Bob," but the call displayed said Peter. And that was the very first thing that got me going.
Ron Usher helped stop a similar series of crimes in Vancouver in 2008 after 5 homes were fraudulently sold. He noticed several red flags in a transaction and phoned police. Red flags, he says, can be easy to overlook.
When things are suspicious, people don't seem to know about a property. They don't really have any real knowledge of it. They have brand new documentation.
In a statement, the Land Title and Survey Authority of British Columbia says cases like these are rare, and there are up to 1 million legitimate real estate transactions in BC each year. But in Ontario, the problem is surging. A CBC investigation revealed at least 30 Toronto homes have been mortgaged or sold by fraudsters, in part thanks to increasingly sophisticated fake IDs.
It's an arms race. I think everybody in the game has been trying to up their standards. And so what we don't know about the ones in Ontario is, okay, where did it go wrong?
Usher says everyone involved in a real estate transaction, from lawyers to real estate agents, needs better training on how to verify identification.
Everybody's got stars in their eyes about real estate. Everybody's got something they're getting out of it. And those things can always blind you to red flags.
In both cases in Richmond, forged passports were allegedly used to convince real estate agents and lawyers that the homeowners wanted to sell their homes. RCMP have now made 2 arrests, and those cases are now before the courts. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
BC is now just 2 days into its new drug decriminalization policy. Researchers are already eagerly awaiting data on how it might affect users' health and well-being. Public health experts say it will likely be months, if not years, before they notice any major trends. Our John Hernandez reports on why the policy is being called an exciting and flawed Canadian experiment.
It's probably one of the hardest things that I've ever had to overcome, which is the criminal justice system.
Guy Felicella knows the debilitating toll the constant run-ins with the law can take on your mental health.
It's relentless and ruthless, and it's never ending, and it puts a target on your back for the rest of your life.
The former drug user turned peer advisor says possession charges led to years of incarceration and shame. He hopes decriminalization will mark an end to a vicious cycle.
Take it from a guy and others that have gone through the prison system many times for just carrying small amounts of substances. To have that not happen, it can really shape you to reach out a lot sooner for support.
Most health experts will agree BC's decriminalization policy has its shortcomings. The threshold is considered too low by many, and it doesn't address the flood of toxic drugs on the street. But there is hope it could indirectly prevent deaths by reducing stigma.
It's a very exciting time because it's an experiment that in Canada we've never done before.
This researcher plans to study how the policy will affect health and social and economic well-being. She says look no further than Portugal, which instituted sweeping decriminalization laws in 2000.
And went from a country that had the highest level of overdose in Europe to a country that had among the lowest. And so we do know that there is potential for real material change that can result from this.
Portugal's program was accompanied by an influx of treatment options. BC's former provincial health officer hopes that will happen here too.
You need to have the whole continuum from harm reduction to safer supply.
Until then, eyes will be on the limited data that rolls in over the coming months to see if decriminalization has any noticeable effect on the alarming number of fatal overdoses.
We'll probably have to wait at least a year to see some of the interim results come out, but I think it'll be watched with interest.
Interest that's been generated from across the world. The policy a symbolic step forward to solving a much larger puzzle. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Canada's opposition leader, meanwhile, came out against BC's decriminalization today. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre promises if elected Prime Minister, he would replace the decriminalization with recovery and treatment solutions.
It has been a disaster, an absolute abject failure. The NDP approach is on open display in Vancouver. It is a complete disaster. It is hell on earth.
Still with healthcare, family doctors in BC will now be paid more for the time they actually spend with and for patients. The province's new payment scheme is up and running. The fee-for-service system, the old one, meant MDs are paid about $30 per patient, whether they need a quick checkup or have a complicated health issue. Doctors say they would spend many unpaid hours on paperwork and tests on top of running a practice. Now they'll be paid for that extra time with patients and for the admin work. The hope is they will then accept more patients. The average family physician in BC will see a raise from about $250,000 a year to $385,000.
We know that over 1,000 physicians have signed up already, and we've heard anecdotes of physicians who are wrestling with, well, I have about 250 people currently that are unattached. Can I attach them this week? Can I get them the care that they need?
About 1 million people in BC are not believed to have a family doctor, and that shortage has put a strain on urgent care centres and ERs. About 3,000 more family doctors are eligible to sign up for the new payment plan. Health Minister Adrian Dix says he expects many more will in the weeks ahead. At least one other family MD anticipates more colleagues will take on more patients in the next 6 months, if not earlier.
I know a physician who worked in walk-in in the hybrid walk-in family practice that I helped direct. He's actually moving to a full family practice as of this month, as of when the new payment model started. And I've heard other physicians as well saying, I'm going to scale back on walk-in or other kinds of focused care and focus more on longitudinal family practice.
Meanwhile, the BC Greens say the new payment plan is a good first step, but are urging the government to set up community health centres across the province. At that same news conference, Health Minister Dix was asked about one of the newest members of the province's public health leadership team. You may recognize her. Alberta's former Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Dina Hinshaw, will temporarily jump into the role of our Deputy Provincial Health Officer. She's on a 6-month contract. Hinshaw was the face of Alberta's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, but faced criticism from Premier Danielle Smith and was fired in November.
I can't imagine why you wouldn't want to hire an outstanding public health doctor like Dr. Hinshaw. We're very lucky to have her. I'm very proud we did it. It's not a free agent signing, but she was available.
Along with Hinshaw, Dr. Andrew Larder has also been hired to join BC's team. He has signed on for a temporary assignment for several months. He was a medical health officer at Fraser and Interior Health Authorities. Meanwhile, Premier David Eby is in Ottawa to discuss health as well as public safety with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Mira Baines has more on what they covered.
Premier David Eby appeared optimistic as he stood with his 6 cabinet ministers ahead of a meeting with the Prime Minister. He clearly laid out issues that BC has been grappling with, including public safety, healthcare, housing, affordability, and climate change. This is the first official meeting that EB has had with the Prime Minister. It occurs just days before provincial premiers are set to sit down with the Prime Minister to discuss healthcare funding. With a shortage of healthcare workers and a strain on funds post-pandemic, provinces are looking for more money. The premiers want Ottawa to cover 35% of healthcare costs, up from the current 22%. EB explained what to expect next week.
The structure of the meeting is that the Prime Minister is going to present his proposal to premiers, and premiers will have an opportunity to discuss it, but that any deal will be down the road and will not be at that particular meeting.
Another issue at the forefront of the meetings has been public safety and bail reforms to deal with repeat violent offenders. Today, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre promised to undo the federal Liberals' bail policy. EB says he believes progress is being made.
The need to address that through the criminal code reforms that are needed. That specific issue front of mind, but also the underlying issues, the issues of addressing mental health and addiction through the healthcare system as well, and intervening around those issues with mental health and addiction responses.
On Thursday, Premier EB will be meeting with Ontario Premier Doug Ford and U.S. Ambassador David Cohen to talk about U.S.-Canada relations. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
To other news now, police are looking into an anti-gay rant in downtown Vancouver that saw two men as the target.
I don't want this in my country. Get off my face. Don't talk to him. Do you understand me? Don't you? Talk.
On Saturday night, Jamie Pine and his boyfriend Reg Acervo were followed by a stranger on transit. The man began spewing homophobic and racial slurs at them. They say the man then chased them from Burrard SkyTrain station and yelled at them in the street. That video of the confrontation has attracted thousands of views online. Premier David Eby also weighed in, saying, "Jamie, I'm sorry this happened to you and your boyfriend. Disgusting behavior. If two people in love make someone this angry, they're the problem, not you. We must always stand up against racism, homophobia, and all other forms of hate."
I don't think I'm going.
We don't go to concert because of that anymore. We go to a hockey game.
Another concert, another round of high-priced tickets. What's behind the steep costs? After the break. Hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. It is the beginning of a month where hundreds of parents in Vancouver will get an email telling them their child will be on a wait list to get into the school closest to them. It's the kindergarten lottery, and it's causing frustration for Vancouver for at least a decade. And as Justin McElroy reports, there likely will not be a quick fix.
Olympic Village. It's a neighborhood with bike lanes, giant birds, and 3 restaurants that are sort of the same. But what it doesn't have is a school.
There's a number of families who live here, and we choose to live here because we can live without a car.
That was an interview we did in 2019 with Lisa McAllister. With no school in Olympic Village, she applied for her child to be in the next closest one, a 25-minute walk away at Simon Fraser Elementary. But she was 50th on the wait list, so they do homeschooling. The year after the interview, we had a provincial election, which meant it was time for political promises.
She's from the community, she's going to get a school built.
This means a new school right here in Olympic Village.
The NDP and their candidate for the area promised a new school for Olympic Village in 2020 if they won, and they did win. So what's happened in the 900 days since? The answer, bluntly, is not much. This is the statement by the province when we asked 2 months ago. 13 years after the Olympic Village was built, there's no timeline for approval or funding or shovels in the ground for an actual school. But the problem isn't just no school at Olympic Village. Here is a map. It shows every English-speaking elementary school in Vancouver. And here are the schools where there was a wait list to get into kindergarten last year. In total, 289 students were on a wait list, most of them right in the middle of the city. Many had to go to schools outside of catchment areas, sometimes several schools away. And the school board knows it's a problem.
We completely acknowledge how stressful it is, particularly if you live in a community where we have increased enrollment and we have issues with capacity at the school.
Now, a new school is coming in Cole Harbour, and that will help things. But when asked why it's had to be this way for so long, it's a less satisfying answer.
The planning involves the Vancouver School District. The planning involves the City of Vancouver, which is making the decisions around development. And then the planning also involves the ministry.
In other words, no one has full responsibility, no one has full funding control, nobody wants to take the blame, and so here we are. We mentioned this now because this month, hundreds of parents right in the center of BC's biggest city will get a letter from the school board telling them whether their child gets into the kindergarten of their choice or is on a wait list. It may be a first world problem, but it's still worth noting that if this story was a child, by now it would be in grade 3. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
Ticketmaster is facing more blowback, this time from people here in BC. Some Coldplay fans are furious they have to pay hundreds of dollars to see the band in Vancouver this fall, while tickets are much cheaper in Seattle. As Yasmin Renea reports, experts blame the difference on a complex equation for calculating ticket costs.
Coldplay will perform twice in September at BC Place. All tickets in the triple digits on Ticketmaster. Some seats close to the stage will cost you about $800, including taxes and fees.
That's so expensive. No, I'm too cheap.
I don't think I'm going.
We don't go to concert because of that anymore. We go to a hockey game.
But some tickets for Coldplay's concert in Seattle on September 20 are less than half that price. And upper-level seats are roughly $74 US. Experts say different production costs and venue sizes could play a role. And promoters could be raising the price because Vancouver is the only Canadian tour stop.
Well, they feel that people might be traveling from other parts in Canada in order to go to the shows in Vancouver, and the people that can afford to travel, therefore can afford to pay high ticket prices.
But experts also blame high prices on Ticketmaster's dynamic pricing policy. Many Coldplay tickets are labeled official platinum seats, but they're not in a prime spot, as the name suggests. Ticketmaster's pricing policy shifts the price up and down based on demand.
It would be great if artists had more power to ask Ticketmaster to turn off that practice.
Ticketmaster did not respond to CBC News' request for comment, but the company defends its dynamic pricing model. Its website claims it gives fans fair and safe access to the best tickets while enabling artists to price tickets closer to their true market value. Meaning fans here will have to start saving up, some more than others.
I bet I only have $75 in my bank account.
Yasmin Renea, CBC News, Vancouver.
Snow may be melting on the south coast, but plenty is set to fall in northern BC. Kuljeet Kaila will have your BC-wide forecast next.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Patrick Watson, and from Dinah and Laurier and me, welcome to 7 Days, our 41st edition. And this is our first story.
When the National Hockey League decided to approve 6 new hockey cities, doubling the membership, the people in Vancouver thought, boy, this is it. But did it work out that way? This week, the powerful NHL gave franchises instead to 6 cities in the United States. Well, the players will be Canadians anyhow. Jack Webster stands on the wind-whipped corner in Vancouver to see the fans are...
Vancouver being refused an NHL franchise.
I think it's just terrible.
Who do you blame it on, the Norris gang?
Well, certainly. Certainly. The big shots in the East are telling us what we're going to get and what we're not going to get.
We're not going to get the NHL franchise. What do you think of it?
Well, I think it's too bad that we don't get it, because after all, it's a Canadian game, and it started here and originated here.
Oh, I'm a visitor, but I think it's a shame. I really do.
Where are you from?
I'm from Los Angeles.
But you got a franchise.
I know we do. We're very delighted with it.
Can we have your franchise?
No.
So I think it's TV. I think it's big money. It's got nothing to do with us being Canadian, unfortunately.
I think it's damn disgusting.
What went wrong? Who did it to us?
Well, I think Stafford Smythe was very disgusted primarily because Vancouver voted him down at the time when he came here to try and buy Vancouver. And I feel that doubtlessly that he, well...
He cut our throats.
Cut our throats.
He denies us, of course.
Naturally.
I think we should have it here. I think it's wonderful.
But, ma'am, they've already turned us down. Where have you been?
Well, we better smarten up and get them back.
But we've lost it. There's no hope now.
Yes, there is. Never give up hope, boy.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On March 2nd, join CBC Vancouver's Michelle Elliott and a panel of top UBC experts at the UBC Med Talks, a hybrid event on the topic of healthy aging. Register at alumni.ubc.ca and never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Kuljeet Kaila is here with our BC weather forecast. Province-wide, very different story between the South Coast and the rest of the province, or at least a big portion of it, Kuljeet.
We are done with the cold, dry air. We're done with the snow for the time being, but not other parts of the province. We did have a few warnings get issued today. A winter storm warning for Prince George will bring 20 to 40 centimeters of snow up until tomorrow morning. So literally people are going to be shoveling all night, I'm afraid to say. A snowfall warning up north of that as well will also bring lots of snow. Now, with a lot of snow means we do have to keep an eye on the avalanche warning situation. And in that area of Prince George, it has reached the high mark and still considerable and moderate in other parts of the province. For the forecast for tomorrow, -3 and cold with lots of snow coming down for Prince George. Wet along the coast and lots of wind as well for Port Hardy with a high of 5 degrees through there tomorrow. We are now finally at seasonal temperatures for highs and lows. The humidity is back up to about 78%, so that dry weather is gone. Light rain is what we saw today. It's what we'll see tomorrow, and it will last until about Friday morning, and then we're going to get a lot of rain for the weekend. If we take a look at the long-term forecast, up to 30 millimeters on Friday, a total of 30 on Saturday and Sunday, and it continues early into next week. It's not towards the end of next week. We're actually going to see some sunshine as we move towards Valentine's Day.
Oh, that'll be delightful to break up that pattern.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Kuljeet.
You're welcome.
And that is your late news for Wednesday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news anytime, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. And I will be your host here in the chair at 6 p.m. tomorrow night. So please join us then as well. Good night.